No one teaches us what to do when life breaks us. When the job is gone, the relationship ends, or the person we love never comes back. We grow up learning how to ride a bike, how to solve math problems, how to land a job, even how to decorate for the holidays. But no one hands us a guide for the nights we cry on the bathroom floor, feeling like our whole world has collapsed. Those moments feel like the end, and yet almost everyone in this room has had at least one of them. Maybe you're living in one right now. The truth is, life does not ask for permission before it delivers pain. It doesn't send a warning before the storm hits. One phone call can split your life into before and after. One betrayal can knock the air out of your lungs. One loss can leave you questioning if you'll ever be okay again. And in those moments, the idea of moving on feels like an insult. How do you move on when you're not even sure you can stand up? I remember sitting with a woman after she had lost her husband unexpectedly. She told me, "I feel like my life is in shards on the floor and everyone keeps telling me to just sweep them up and keep going. But I can't. I don't even know where to start." And I looked at her and thought, this is what no one tells us, that when life breaks you, you don't sweep up the pieces. You don't rush to glue yourself back together. You sit among the fragments and you breathe. You let yourself feel the weight of what's happened, because pretending it's not broken doesn't heal it, it only hides it. And yet, here's the paradox in our culture: we're taught to avoid brokenness at all costs. We're taught to numb, to distract, to hustle harder, to put on a brave face. Someone asks you, "How are you?" And you reply, "I'm fine," even when your heart is bleeding. But brokenness is not weakness. It's not failure. It's proof you dared to love, to risk, to live. If you've never been broken, you've never truly lived. Think about this. Some of the most beautiful things on this earth are broken. Seeds break to become trees. Dawn breaks to bring the light. Even our own bodies, our bones, when they break and heal, they become stronger at the broken places. What if life's breaks were not punishments, but invitations? What if being broken is not the end of your story, but the beginning of a braver one? I want you to imagine this for a moment. Standing in front of a mirror, looking at yourself not as shattered glass, but as a mosaic waiting to be created. Every piece of pain, every scar, every crack, it doesn't make you less. It makes you more layered, more real, more human. So tonight, I want to talk about what it really means when life breaks us. Not how to avoid it, not how to deny it, but how to live through it. Because whether your heartbreak is fresh or your scars run deep, there is something sacred in your story that no one can take away from you. Brokenness may change you, but it does not erase you. And here's the hope I want you to hold on to. Sometimes the breaking is the only way for the light to get in. Here's the thing we rarely admit out loud. Being broken is terrifying. Nobody wants it. Nobody asks for it. We spend so much of our lives trying to avoid it. But what if the moments that shatter us are also the moments that reveal the most beautiful parts of who we are? I want you to think about a piece of pottery. In Japan, there's an ancient art form called kintsugi. When a bowl or vase breaks, they don't throw it away. They don't try to hide the cracks. Instead, they repair it with gold. The broken places are filled with shimmering seams, making the object more beautiful, more unique, and more valuable than it was before. And I think to myself, that's what our lives can be like when we embrace our brokenness instead of hiding it. Because here's the truth. Your cracks are not flaws to be ashamed of. They are evidence that you've lived, that you've risked, that you've dared to love and to hope. They're reminders that you've survived what you thought you couldn't. And when we stop covering them up, when we let others see them, something incredible happens: connection. We live in a culture obsessed with perfection. Perfect Instagram photos, perfect resumes, perfect families at the dinner table. But perfection doesn't connect us. It isolates us. Nobody relates to perfect. What we relate to is the messy, unfiltered truth. And when you stand there with your cracks showing, someone else whispers, "Me too." That whisper is where healing begins. Let me share a story. I once sat with a woman who had battled cancer. She showed me her scars with tears in her eyes and said, "I hate that my body looks like this now." And yet, when she pulled back her shirt and revealed the marks across her chest, I didn't see something ugly. I saw strength. I saw courage written into her skin. I saw survival. Her scars didn't make her less beautiful. They made her breathtaking. What if we stopped hiding our scars? What if we wore them as proof that we have walked through the fire and are still standing? Here's something I've learned through research and through life. We grow the most in the places where we've been broken. We don't build resilience when everything is easy. We don't discover courage when the road is smooth. It's the cracks, The breaks, the shattering. That's where the growth happens. That's where empathy is born. That's where wisdom is formed. And yet we often look at our lives and think, if only I hadn't gone through that. If only this hadn't happened. But what if those exact moments are the very ones shaping us into the person we're meant to be? Think about your own life. Think about the times you've been broken. Maybe it was a heartbreak, a betrayal, a loss, a failure. Look back at who you were before and who you are now. Can you see the difference? Can you see how those cracks taught you to love deeper, to listen more, to fight harder, to rise stronger? The beauty in brokenness is this. It strips away the illusion that we have to be perfect to be worthy. It reminds us that our humanity, our messy, complicated, cracked humanity, is what makes us beautiful. So the next time you look at your life and see only the broken pieces, I want you to remember this. You are not ruined. You are being remade. You are not worthless. You are becoming priceless. The gold that fills your cracks is the courage, compassion, and resilience you never knew you had. Your brokenness is not the end of your story. It's the chapter that makes the rest of the story worth telling. When life breaks us, the temptation is almost always the same: escape. We don't want to feel the sharp edges of pain, so we reach for whatever numbs it. For some, it's a glass of wine that becomes a bottle. For others, it's working endless hours, scrolling social media until 2 in the morning, or keeping themselves so busy that they don't have a single second to stop and think. We all have our numbing agents. And here's what I've learned in my years of research and in my own life: numbing works for a while. It can dull the ache. It can distract you from the silence that feels unbearable. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. When you numb the pain, you also numb the joy. When you close yourself off to sadness, you close yourself off to love. Pain and joy are connected. You cannot selectively numb. And when you try, you end up living a half-life, never fully hurting, but never fully alive either. I remember talking with a man who had gone through a devastating divorce. He told me, "Brené, I decided the only way forward was to shut it all down. I stopped feeling, I didn't let myself get sad, and I didn't let myself get close to anyone again." I thought that was strength. But the truth was, he wasn't living. He was surviving on autopilot. And when he finally allowed himself to feel the pain, as raw and unbearable as it was, he discovered something surprising. It hurt less to feel than to be numb. Here's the thing. Choosing courage over numbness is not about pretending to be strong. It's about daring to feel everything, even when it feels like too much. It's about saying, yes, I am broken. And yes, I'm going to let myself grieve, cry, scream, rest, and then slowly stand back up. That is courage. Courage doesn't mean you don't hurt. Courage means you refuse to run from the hurt. Think about this. When you break a bone, the doctor doesn't tell you to just keep walking on it like nothing happened. They immobilize it. They make space for it to heal. But what do we do with our emotional breaks? We slap a smile on our faces and tell ourselves to keep going. We try to function as if nothing's wrong. But healing requires stillness. It requires feeling the ache so it can eventually transform. And here's the paradox. You think the pain will destroy you, but it's actually the running from the pain that keeps you stuck. When you finally stop and let yourself feel it, something shifts. The pain starts to move through you instead of getting trapped inside you. I often tell people, sit with your pain. Name it. If you've lost someone, say out loud, "I miss you. This hurts." If you've failed, admit, "I'm embarrassed. I feel ashamed." Because the moment you name it, it loses some of its power. What we hide festers. What we name begins to heal. There's a line I love. You can't heal what you don't allow yourself to feel. That's the essence of courage. Courage is letting yourself feel the full weight of your heartbreak, trusting that you won't drown in it, that you're stronger than you think. And here's the most beautiful part. When you choose courage over numbness, you begin to reclaim joy too. You start to notice small things again. The warmth of a cup of coffee in your hands, the sound of laughter in a room, the way the sun spills through your window. These tiny sparks of joy are what pull you back into life, but you can only feel them if you're willing to feel everything else too. So here's my challenge to you. Stop running, stop numbing, let yourself feel. Yes, it's terrifying. Yes, it's messy. but it's also the bravest thing you'll ever do. Because when you choose courage over numbness, you don't just survive, you come alive. There's a moment after the break, after the tears, after the numbness, when you begin to wonder, what now? You've faced the loss, you've felt the pain, and now you're standing in the ruins of what used to be your life. Rising doesn't happen in a single day. It's not a light switch you flip. Rising is messy, imperfect, and often so slow you don't even realize it's happening. But make no mistake, the power of rising after being broken is one of the most extraordinary things we as humans are capable of. Here's what I've learned. Rising is not about going back to who you were before. That person is gone. Rising is about becoming someone new, someone forged in fire, someone who carries wisdom, resilience, and strength they didn't know they had. Think about the phoenix. In mythology, it bursts into flames and is reduced to ashes. It doesn't come back as the same bird. It rises as something transformed. And that's what we do when life breaks us. We don't return to our old selves. We rise into a braver, more authentic version of ourselves. I once spoke with a woman who had lost everything: her job, her marriage, her sense of security. She told me, "I thought I was done. I thought my story was over." But slowly, piece by piece, she started rebuilding. She went back to school in her 40s. She found community in places she never expected. She discovered talents she never knew she had. And she said something that stuck with me. "I didn't get my old life back. I got a new one. And in many ways, it's better." That's the power of rising. But here's the truth we often avoid. Rising requires falling first. You cannot rise if you haven't fallen. We want the comeback without the collapse, the triumph without the trial. But it doesn't work that way. Every great rise is born out of struggle. And rising doesn't mean you never fall again. In fact, it means you've accepted that falling is part of living. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It's about knowing that when pain comes, you will rise again. Every time you rise, you build a little more strength, a little more courage, a little more faith in yourself. Sometimes rising doesn't look heroic. Sometimes it's as simple as getting out of bed after a night of sobbing. Sometimes it's showing up to work when your heart feels heavy. Sometimes it's smiling at your kids even when you're unsure how you'll pay the bills. Don't underestimate those moments. That's rising. That's courage in its rawest form. And here's what happens when you rise: you give others permission to do the same. Your story becomes someone else's survival guide. When you stand up, cracks and scars visible, and say, "I've been broken, but I'm still here," you become living proof that healing is possible. You become a lighthouse for someone still lost in the storm. I know rising can feel impossible when you're still in the ashes. I know there are days when hope feels like a cruel joke. But I want you to remember this: resilience is not about how fast you rise. It's about the fact that you rise at all, even if it's slow, even if it's shaky, even if you fall down 100 times before you stand tall. That is strength. Life will break you. That's not a threat. It's a guarantee, but it cannot define you unless you let it. You are not your failures. You are not your heartbreaks. You are not your scars. You are the person who rose from them. And that, my friends, is the most powerful identity you can carry. So when you're standing in the rubble, unsure of how to take the next step, remember this: rising is not about erasing the pain. It's about carrying it with you, transforming it, and using it to fuel the next chapter of your life. That's the power of rising. We began tonight with a question: what do you do when life breaks you? And we've walked through the truth that brokenness is not the end. It's the beginning of something deeper. We've seen the beauty in our cracks, the courage it takes to feel instead of numb, and the power of rising even when it feels impossible. But here's what I want to leave with you tonight. When life breaks you, you will always face a choice. The choice isn't whether or not the pain comes. You don't get to control that. The choice is what you do with it. Do you shut down, or do you stay open? Do you let shame and guilt whisper that you're not enough? Or do you choose courage and compassion? I think of guilt as the voice that says, "You shouldn't feel this way, you should be stronger, you should move on faster." And every time you listen to that voice, you shrink, you put on the mask, you silence your truth. But courage, real courage, says something different. Courage says, "Yes, I am broken. Yes, I am scared, but I will not pretend. I will stand in my truth, cracks and all." And that, my friends, is where freedom is found. Let me tell you something important. Being broken doesn't make you unworthy. It makes you human. And when you choose courage over guilt, You claim your right to live fully, even when you're still healing. I once spoke with a young man who had lost his brother. He said, "I feel guilty every time I laugh. How can I be happy when he's gone?" And I told him what I'll tell you. Joy does not dishonor pain. Laughter doesn't erase grief. Rising doesn't erase the fall. They live side by side. In fact, allowing yourself to laugh again, to feel joy again, that's one of the bravest acts of love for the person you lost. That's choosing courage over guilt. And here's the thing. Every time we choose courage, we also give others permission to do the same. Your healing becomes hope for someone else. Your survival becomes proof that they too can make it through. That's the ripple effect of rising. So tonight, I want to leave you with this. When life breaks you, remember that you are not broken beyond repair. You are being remade. The cracks you carry are not weaknesses. They are your story written in gold. The pain you've endured does not make you less. It makes you more compassionate, more resilient, more beautifully human. And when you rise, and you will rise, you don't rise alone. You rise carrying the people who inspired you, the ones who believed in you, and the ones who are still waiting to see if rising is possible. You rise for yourself, but you also rise for them. So if you hear nothing else tonight, hear this. Life doesn't break you to destroy you. It breaks you to rebuild you, to make you softer where you were hardened, stronger where you were fragile, wiser where you were naive. Your job is not to pretend you're unbroken. Your job is to be courageous enough to live fully in your brokenness and trust that it will become the foundation of your rising. And maybe one day when someone else is shattered, they will look at you, your scars, your cracks, your resilience, and they will whisper, "If they can rise, so can I." That is the legacy of brokenness. Not despair, not shame, but the courage to keep living, to keep loving, and to keep rising. So the next time life breaks you, and it will stand tall in the knowledge that you are not defined by the breaking. You are defined by the rising. And you, my friends, are stronger than you've ever dared to believe.